A very good evening to you. Welcome to another NewsMaker Live broadcast right here on DBS television with me, Timothy Polion. We conclude at 10 o'clock this evening with the clip that peaked. And boy, do I have a very interesting guest on the broadcast this evening. And we all set for a fascinating program. The improbable occurred on Tuesday when Mr. Peterson Francis gave up the candidacy of Castries Central 4 months after being endorsed by the opposition United Workers' Party. He cited strong family concerns as his reason for making way for Sarah Flood-Bobra, a former St. Lucia Labour Party MP, for the seat. We have a report now from DBS's Don Nicholas.
MP Alva Baptiste chose not to say much on the decision by the UWP to have Sarah Flood-Bobra do battle for the Castries Central seat. Bobra is no stranger to the constituency, having served as Castries Central MP before.
I will not comment. No, I will not comment on those things.
After making this brief comment, Mr. Baptiste chose to direct his attention to the unemployment situation. He said that unlike the UWP administration, his government was able to reduce the unemployment figures. However, we were able to get back to the topic at hand concerning the Castries Central seat and asked Mr. Baptiste what he thought of Mr. Felix's chances of bringing home the bacon for the St. Lucia Labour Party.
What do you think of Mr. Stanley's chances against Mr. Bobra?
The people of Castries Central will not gamble with the future of this country and their future.
In 2006, Mrs. Bobra contested the Castries Central seat in a by-election representing the Organization for National Empowerment, won, but she lost in a three-cornered fight against incumbent MP Richard Frederick and Victor Lecorbinier. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
And thank you very much, Don, for this report. Meanwhile, during an April 20th, 2016 appearance on NewsMaker Live, I posed an, at the time, matter-of-fact question to a veteran politician, referring there to Mrs. Sarah Flood-Bobra, which currently has an air of serendipity to it. Will you be contesting the next general election?
I have not decided to do that, Timothy. I mean, I have not given enough thought to that, and I cannot say at this point that I will be contesting.
Is there any possibility that you will be?
Well, in politics, as we say, days a long time and never say never. So, I mean, what I can say now is that I have not given sufficient thought to it, and I have not made a decision to contest the general election that's coming.
And my guest is Mrs. Sarah Flood-Bobra. Welcome to NewsMaker Live.
Good evening, Timothy. Good evening, viewers.
You're making your second appearance within the last 2 weeks.
I'm very kind to you, Timothy.
I appreciate that. What say you to people might be saying that when you were on this broadcast on April the 20th, they were behind the scenes maneuvering, things were happening, and probably you were not as straightforward as you should have been with me and the viewers of this program.
Yeah, but I mean, what I said, Timothy, then was that I had not given sufficient thought. And I was on this program, 2 weeks ago, and I did say that a day is a long time in politics, and I had not given sufficient thought at the time. And certainly a day being a long time in politics and 2 weeks having elapsed certainly gave me time to give more thought and enough thought and to make a decision.
And that decision is that you will definitely be contesting that seat come the next general election, as we heard in that Don Nicholas report. What did it take?
A lot of thought. And I had been asked by the party before, months ago, even before Peterson Francis was endorsed. I'd been invited to run a seat, or I had been asked whether I would offer myself for a seat. And when I made a decision in 1997, that's almost 20 years ago, just a few months short of 20 years, let's put it this way, I was free, single, and disengaged. I mean, I now have a family with young children who are studying overseas, and lots of other things, many things. I mean, when you're young and free, you could make a decision very quickly. But obviously, there was a lot for me to think about. Ultimately, What tugged at my heart was the repeated requests by the people of Castries Central.
But it certainly would come as a shock to many people that after Mr. Peterson Francis was endorsed in December of last year, along with Mr. Stanislas, who is contesting the Soufre seat, and Dr. Ulrich Mondesi, who is contesting the VA4 South seat, that why should you all of a sudden be turned to contest that seat when we already had an endorsed candidate? What is the real reason why you've been asked to contest this seat?
Well, Mr. Francis obviously had discussions with the party, which I was not privy to. And the party then had discussions with me. And I can only speak for myself because I was not privy to the discussions that Mr. Francis had with the party. And even for me, when the party had discussions with me, it did take some going back and forth. And it was not a decision that I could rush even for myself. So I did have to say to the party that I'd have to think about it, and I needed the time, and I couldn't rush. And it did come to a point where I felt comfortable within myself about the decision. It had to come to a point where I felt it was a natural thing that I wanted to do so that I could give my all to it. And of course, I had to have discussions with my family on the phone so far, because when I left London about 3 weeks ago, my husband and I had not had these discussions. So it is truly something that has developed only in the last, not even few weeks, really. So in terms of really a serious thought being given to this. But I am very happy with my decision. I am offering myself wholeheartedly to the people of Castries Central. I started my political career there in 1997. Just going through Wilton's Yard today, you know, I meet people who wore my Auntie Sarah t-shirts. They were 5 years old or even younger, and they remember me. And I'm happy that I am offering myself almost 2 decades later when I first started. I think I've learned a lot. I think I've grown, and I think that what I'm offering them today is better than what was before. So I am hoping they will again give me an opportunity so that we can continue to be together, and this time I promise them that I will do even better. They will be getting the best of me.
Why should they repose their confidence in you when during the 1997 general election campaign and the subsequent campaign of 2001, you contested as an SLP candidate? You would have been very convincing, saying vote for me and also vote for the St. Lucia Labour Party. Now you're preparing to do the opposite.
Yes.
Vote for me and vote for the United Workers' Party. Yeah. Don't you think that this is kind of scary?
Well, we hold elections every 5 years in our democracy. And the reason why we do that is that things change. And people have an opportunity to make decisions based on what has happened, the track record of the government, what is being offered, what the candidate is. That's why we hold elections. So people can review progress, they can assess a candidate who may be a new candidate, offering themselves on a different ticket. That is why we have elections every 5 years. So people can review, assess, and make decisions. The fact that you voted for a particular candidate this time round doesn't mean that next time you'll vote for that candidate. The fact that you voted for a particular party this time around doesn't mean that you will vote for that party. And certainly all St. Lucians, whether they're offering themselves up as candidates or whether they are voters, have the right, have the opportunity to decide where they will put their vote or what policies they will support. That is what democracy is all about. The fact that you did one thing this time doesn't mean you have to do the same thing next time. In fact, it speaks of maturity when you can review your past actions and see, how am I going to do things better? What causes am I going to promote? What causes am I going to support? And ultimately, it's for the people to decide that. What I'm doing is offering myself. And it's, at the end of the day, the democratic process will unfold.
But I don't think that it will be difficult to convince die-hard supporters of the ruling St. Lucia Labour Party that they should vote for you and not Senator Stanley Felix?
Well, I mean, I am offering myself for every voter in Castries Central. And my intention certainly after the general elections is to represent everybody. So I would certainly like to invite everyone, regardless of what party you traditionally support, to support me as the candidate for Castries Central, because my aim is to represent each and every person in Castries Central if I'm victorious of the election, regardless of whether you voted for me or not. But I certainly would encourage every single person, regardless of your traditional vote, to vote for me as a candidate for Castries Central.
So what is the difference between this St. Lucia Labour Party compared to the one of 1997 and 2001 and the United Workers' Party right now?
Timothy, I have no problems with the Labour Party supporters. You know, I have no problem with the St. Lucia Labour Party as a party. You know why I broke ranks with the Labour Party, certain policies that were being pushed that I did not like. The people of the Labour Party are the people of St. Lucia, and I love them just as much. I think the difference we're talking about is we have seen the Labour Party policies not being people-centered. We have seen the Labour Party policies not respecting the dignity of the human person. We have seen rising unemployment. That is a serious issue for Castries Central. That will be one of the priority issues I will address if I'm elected MP. Unemployment. During my tenure as parliamentary representative, I did a lot to assist young people to get employment, and I'm so pleased to see the number of them, the scores of them who have kept that employment for all these years. You know, and that says a lot about the willingness of young people to work, the ability of young people in Castries Central. A lot of them from the ghetto have been able to keep jobs for almost 2 decades. And we have to provide even greater opportunities for them. And I'm really eager to do that.
What gives you the impression that the situation, the condition will improve with regard to the unemployment situation under a United Workers' Party administration led by Alan Chastney, that the St. Lucia Labour Party under Dr. Kenny Anthony cannot fulfill or cannot undertake?
I think it's about having new and creative ideas. For my part, I think it's really important to have an opportunity where we can very quickly provide young people with employment. Right now, people don't have money. Young people have skills, they have ideas, they are creative, some of them have done really well at school, and they have no money. They cannot meet their basic needs right now. There needs to be some short-term intervention, and it must be short. It must not be a short-term program that extends into a long-term program and it's not sustainable. So there has to be a short-term intervention where young people can immediately get employment, and that has to be followed up very quickly with an opportunity where they can use their talents, whether it is to create small businesses so that they can be employed and they can employ others. I personally have an idea that I would like to put forward, but I would like to do that in a youth forum, which I intend to have with young people, that I will call to a meeting, hear their ideas, and make some tangible suggestions to them as to how we can move forward. In the next few weeks, we will be doing that in Castries Central.
In the event that the United Workers' Party wins the next general election and you are a successful MP for Castries Central, you would have to work with the finance minister. One can certainly expect that it would be Mr. Alan Chastney if he wins the Mico North seat. Mico South seat, sorry. How much influence do you have over Mr. Alan Chastney in terms of being able to convince him that he should deliver to you the necessary finances so that you could undertake projects in Castries Central?
Well, I think I can make a convincing argument for almost anything that I believe in. I mean, I can't see how much influence I will have over Mr. Chastney as a finance minister. I've never been in a position where I've had to convince him of of an argument for financing, but based on how I operated in previously as a Minister of Health, I had to fight for health. Any Minister of Health, in fact, in the Caribbean, we used to speak about it all the time, that ministers of finance don't understand ministries of health. And as a Minister of Health, the things we were able to achieve, trust me, I had to fight for them in cabinet.
Don't you think the same would have obtained for your other ministerial colleagues or cabinet colleagues?
Well, traditionally, we certainly found in the Caribbean, as ministers of health met, that ministers of health and social services had a difficult task of convincing ministers of finance to invest, because traditionally social service ministries are seen as draining resources. Many ministers of finance look to these ministries as just drawing down on resources but not producing. Sadly, because it's often said the health of a nation is the wealth of a nation. Investing in health means that you are investing in productivity, which will lead to a vibrant workforce, and it will increase your GDP. So, but unfortunately, traditionally, health and social services are seen as draining, and we have to fight for it. And so I have had the experience of that. I understand that it has to be so. And that is what an MP does. You go out there, you know there's a budget, there's limited resources, but you have to put the needs of your constituents first, and you have to fight for them.
Would you want to relive that experience of being Minister of Health in a United Workers' Party administration?
Would I want to relive that experience? I mean, I would place myself at the disposal of the government of St. Lucia.
But you have a
elected.
preference.
So I
You
am
would have
there.
a preference.
If there is a great need and it is felt that I can work to improve it, I will make
But
myself
right
available.
now, all things considered, what would be your preference?
I would not necessarily want to go back in health, but if that is where a new Prime Minister feels that I can best serve the government, I would.
Would you,
I would agree
would you
to
be
do
interested
that.
in tourism? Would you be interested in agriculture? What would be your preference?
To be honest, I've not thought that far, Timothy. The important thing for me first is to win the Castries Central seat, to help the United Workers' Party win and form the next government. And I would hate to want to tie the hand of any Prime Minister. I would remain open to whatever the new Prime Minister.
But do you think you'll be tying the hand of any Prime Minister? I think you're being honest with yourself and honest with the viewers of this broadcast. And you would respectfully expect that the Prime Minister would not acquiesce to your wishes, but I'm sure that the Prime Minister would have the final say, whoever that Prime Minister will be, the final say. And if the Prime Minister would tell you that you should take on the portfolio of tourism, then you take that portfolio.
Yes.
But I'm just pressing you on having a preference.
I have not thought that far. I have not thought that far.
Don't you think those things
But
are
I
very
think-
important? Don't you
But I
think?
think that I could handle almost any ministry that I would be invited to head. Let's put it that way. There are solutions to every problem in the world. There are best practices out there. I think I would be able to apply myself to any portfolio that I would be invited to head. So I remain open.
Contesting the Castries Central seat, right now the prospects look like we would be contesting against Mr. Stanley Felix of the ruling St. Lucia Labour Party. What about Mr. Richard Frederick contesting that seat, possibly as an independent? Do you have any concerns with regard to Mr. Frederick contesting that seat as well? Do you think as well it will prove to be more of a challenge if he threw his hat into the ring?
Well, obviously, if an independent came in the person of Mr. Richard Frederick, it would split the vote. So that, of course, would be a concern. But we have to remember, I take comfort in the fact that we have to remember that the Castries Central seat is traditionally a United Workers' Party seat, which I won in 1997 by 49 votes for the Labour Party, and again in 2001 by about 300 odd votes. Mr. Frederick won in the last elections as a United Workers' Party candidate. I am coming now to contest now as a United Workers' Party candidate. So I think that I stand a very good chance of winning. We have a very strong constituency group who have been working really hard. Mr. Peterson Francis has put a lot of time and effort into that constituency. And so it really is an honor and a privilege for me. I don't take the work the people have done lightly, and we're going full steam ahead with the help and support of Mr. Peterson Francis and the excellent canvassers and the constituency group that has been doing so much work there. We're just moving ahead to continue to do that work, to improve on whatever we're doing, whatever is working well, we're going to keep that. And people are now energized and ready to work that seat to bring it home to the United Workers' Party.
Why should the constituents of Castries Central vote for you and not Mr. Stanley Felix?
I mean, people of Castries Central know me. It's not a case where I'm a new candidate coming in. They've had an opportunity to work with me for many years. And at the end of the day, I think people trust people they know, and I'm hoping that that is a major factor in people making a decision.
People will tell you, he would tell you readily that the people of Castries Central, they're familiar with him as well, because I think he's from a section of that constituency.
Yes. I'm going to put up a very good fight. I'm going to give this everything I have, and the people on the ground are energized. We're going to make this an exciting campaign. We're going to enjoy it, and we're going to make sure we lead the charge and bring that seat home.
Why should people vote for you and not Mr. Richard Frederick?
I have a very good record in Castries Central. I mean, just to very quickly see the things we did there. We attended to the needs of the young people, you know, the sidewalks, the lighting. We started female football in Castries Central, if you recall. This is where we started female football, which then led to a lot of young ladies getting football scholarships, etc. I think that I can appeal in a really good way to the young people. As I said, I have ideas that I'd like to share with them. I'd like to bring them together so they can share their ideas. I think that there is just the excitement that we can bring to Castries Central, where people can begin to have hope. You know, there really is despair in our country. The young people want to work, they want to contribute to the development of the country, and they don't see how they can do it. And I think with me coming on board and the United Workers' Party, we can really get young people again to trust politicians. They have a problem with trust. They have a problem with trusting politicians. And I think that I have always taken a very personal approach to politics. I want to do that even more, to make sure I am available to these young people. They can find me, we can work together. I really want to give my best. I really do. Of course, when I went in the first time, you know, I just jumped in and swam like a duck and learned. And now I understand even more how much people want their MP to be there with them. We may not be able to achieve everything we want to, but people know that we are going to be working together as a team.
You're watching NewsMaker Live right here on DBS television with me, Timothy Polion, and my guest, Mrs. Sarah Flood Bobra, who is the United Workers' Party candidate for Castries Central. We'll be back in a moment.